Hanayama stands still, and his momentum is increasingly rising. Seeing that, Spec throws away his weapon and makes the same posture as Hanayama. For Spec, his body is the most powerful weapon. After all, he once destroyed a real god with his fists. It was in New York City. During a routine patrol, a guard found many fist marks left by a man on the Statue of Liberty. It is hard to believe that these marks were made by a human being. Let's go back to the fight. Spec decides to use his best technique, the apnea rush. Between punches, boxers will take a quick breath, during which they will show a gap, and this gap provides the best chance for a counterattack. However, Spec can keep attacking for 5 minutes without taking a breath, and this ability helped him escape from the undersea prison. We can say that his apnea rush is a vicious attack that doesn't allow a single counterattack. However, this is only for ordinary opponents. Suddenly, Hanayama's eyes become sharp. He seizes the opportunity amid stormy attacks to give a punch back. This is the martial arts that Hanayama has always adhered to, always having total faith in fighting. The punch from Hanayama is very harmful, even for Spec, who now is struggling to get up from the ground. But Hanayama doesn't stop attacking. With one punch after another, Spec seems to be unable to hold on. He makes a posture of surrender, but the next second he stuffs several bullets hidden in his hand into Hanayama's mouth. The bullets explode instantly and blow up his face. Though seriously injured, Hanayama still stands straight, repeating his question, "Do you still want to continue?" In the police station, the inspector is angry about the bullets stolen. At this moment, he is informed that Spec is brought back by Hanayama after being stunned. The inspector immediately says that he'd like to provide Hanayama with the best treatment, but Hanayama leaves immediately after dropping Spec off. The inspector hurriedly asks his men to drive him home. However, when Hanayama gets into the car remains motionless no matter how the driver steps on the accelerator. It turns out that Spec has woken up some time and overturns the car directly. Hanayama climbs out of the car, wanting to fight back, but Spec takes out the prepared pistol and shoots Hanayama in his knees with a gun. After that, Spec does a karate move toward Hanayama's head. Under Spec's trampling, a terrible sound comes from Hanayama's skull. But Hanayama still doesn't give up. He turns his head and escapes the fatal bullet with his wound on his cheek. Then, he pounces on Spec and hits Spec with his fists like bombs. Spec cunningly delays the action of Hanayama with a flash bomb. It is in this short time that Spec seizes the opportunity to use executed rear naked choke in judo. This move has no flaws. Once it is formed, no one can escape from it. But Hanayama is an exception. His horrible grip strength can tear a chunk out of a deck of cards. With his innate amazing explosive power and grip strength, Hanayama crushes Spec's arms, thighs, and neck, causing him unable to stand. Although his knee is broken by bullets, Hanayama still stands straight, like the god of combat. After this fight, Spec, who looked strong before, becomes about 50 years older. In fact, he is as old as 97. This situation happened before. It is said that there was a treasure hunter in America who died of aging only 14 days after finding the treasure. After realizing his long-cherished wish, Spec, like the treasure hunter, loses his will to support his body. On the other side, in class, students are taking the exam when Baki keeps yawning. The teacher angrily tells Baki that the brain is the most powerful weapon of human beings, and no matter how fast he ran in physical fitness tests, he can never outrun a vehicle. The teacher takes Bolt as an example. He says that even Bolt, the world champion, cannot jump directly from the ground into the classroom. However, before the teacher finishes speaking, Doyle, dressed in black, jumps into the classroom from the ground. Doyle wants Baki to be his opponent, but Baki has no intention of fighting for fear of scaring his classmates. So, he jumps out of the window and escapes, leaving Doyle in the classroom. But before he runs far, a sickle flies to him from behind. It seems that he has many visitors today. Of course, the old man who throws the sickle is not a gardener, but Yanagi. Yanagi waves 2 sickles at an extremely fast speed, exceeding the limit of human vision, but Baki is able to parry his attack in an easy way. But then, Yanagi waves the sickle at a faster speed. This time, Baki can narrowly parry him by virtue of rich combat experience. Just then, someone calls Yanagi from behind. He looks back only to see a kettle flying towards him. The man is no one but Shibukawa, who was attacked by Yanagi before. He uses the same way to trick Yanagi by throwing him a kettle. Yanagi is furious and wants to teach him a lesson, but Shibukawa uses his backhand to hit Yanagi and knocks him to the ground. Although Shibukawa has the upper hand, he doesn't underestimate Yanagi. Instead, he invites Baki to fight against this strong enemy together. There are enemies in front and back. This is a desperate situation for anyone, but Yanagi is quite calm. Japanese research shows that the physical ability and strength of bite are directly proportional, and that's why top athletes have severely worn molars. Yanagi is even more horrible. His posterior molar teeth have all been worn down and flattened. It is hard to imagine what kind of power is hidden in his small body. What is the most poisonous gas in the world? Hydrogen cyanide, sarin gas, or carbon monoxide? These gases are indeed highly toxic, and human beings will slowly die after inhaling them. But there is only one kind of gas that is instantly fatal to people: oxygen. When humans were created by God, there was a huge defect. Human beings can hold their breath for about 6 minutes, but if they inhale less than 6% of oxygen even once, their body functions will stop instantly. And Yanagi's way of the void can instantly reduce the concentration of oxygen in his palms to less than 6%. With this technique, he once defeated a sumo wrestler weighing more than 300 kilograms in prison. Hit by the way of the void, Baki loses his consciousness at once and falls to the ground, but at this time, the police arrive at the scene. Yanagi steps on the Baki and leaves the scene. Baki also wakes up because of his stepping. At night, Japanese top fighters gather in the mansion of Tokugawa to discuss how to deal with those death row inmates. However, Dorian, who has killed all guards, bursts into the room with a bucket of gasoline. He takes out his lighter and tries to light the gasoline. Just then, someone pats him on the shoulder from behind. Dorian looks back and finds that it is Katsumi, who was seriously injured by him before. Katsumi kicks the gasoline on Dorian and lights the gasoline on Dorian in the surprised eyes of all. The flame engulfs Dorian instantly, but Dorian has an extraordinary defense force and is not seriously harmed. As Dappo wants to settle old scores with him, another person walks into the room. Kato, Katsumi's master, is also a member of the Shin Kai and believes in actual combat. Kato suddenly kicks Dorian before he can react and hits him with a heavy punch immediately after that. Then, Kato copies Dorian's moves and cuts off Dorian's ear with a thin wire hidden in his hand. Seeing his disciples using weapons, Dappo is kind of angry. He decides to give his son and Kato a good lesson and then gives a quick kick to Dorian. Everyone is somewhat surprised, for Dorian seems to have lost the ability to fight, and attacking an opponent that's already defeated is not the style of Dappo. But at this time, the sound of pulling wire comes from the air. It turns out that Dorian has placed the wire in advance in the room. Kato and Katsumi are firmly tied by the wire and can't move. No matter how they struggle, they can't break free. However, the next second, the wire with 200 kilograms of tensile strength is cut off by a bare hand of Dappo. It turns out that after training for a long time, Dappo has already transformed his body into a hard and sharp weapon. No matter when, Dappo will not fight with weapons, for his body is a weapon. This is the martial arts that he believes in. Realizing that he is in a disadvantaged position today, Dorian spits out a grenade from his stomach and runs away during the explosion. Fortunately, no one is injured. Dorian walks on the street looking frustrated. After confirming that he is not being followed, he returns to his hideout. More than 50 years ago, he came to Japan after World War II as a junior soldier of the US military. At that time, he built his hideout in the sewer by using old Japanese military facilities. But he is not alone tonight. There is another person in the hideout. It turns out that Kato has been following him. Seeing Kato, Dorian is sort of disappointed, for he thinks Kato cannot give him defeat. Dorian breaks several glass bottles, wraps his fists in grease, and sticks glass fragments. It is said that this fighting method was invented by the American mafia boss Al Capone in the early 20th century. Now Dorian looks much stronger than earlier in the mansion. He waves his fists wrapped in glass fragments and smashes them hard on Kato's face. Then, he pulls out a bottle from behind and hits it on Kato's head. After that, he thrusts the broken bottle into Kato's face and twists it hard. But Kato doesn't give up. For Dappo, karate means unarmed combat, but for Kato, he has his own understanding of karate. Kato's counterattack is fierce, but Dorian doesn't care about it at all. He claps his hands to use hypnosis. Kato suddenly falls into an illusion in which he can easily defeat Dorian. However, with another clap, Kato wakes up from the illusion. He cannot believe that Dorian's power is so unfathomable. He takes out the wire and wants to attack Dorian, but this time, Dorian doesn't give him any chance. The next day, Retsu finds Kato, who is dying in the sandbag of the headquarters of the Shin Kai. After the emergency rescue, Kato doesn't die, but his body is badly injured. The defeat of Kato enrages all members of the Shin Kai. All they want to do now is not pray for Kato's recovery, but to take revenge for him. At night, Dorian in disguise is having his meal in a restaurant, and a waiter comes to him at this moment. The waiter is a member of the Shin Kai and Kato Sr. The waiter tells Dorian that what he has done makes him an enemy of more than 10,000 members of the Shinshin Kai. Now, all movement of Dorian in the country is monitored by them. Dorian doesn't care about it at all. He takes a taxi to return to Shinjuku, but even the taxi driver is a member of the Shinshin Kai. Dorian pulls out the wire, wanting to kill him, but apart from the driver, all the cars on the road at the moment are all seated by the disciples of the Shinshin Kai. Some of them are still on their shifts, while others are making use of their time off. They gather here for the same purpose, to avenge Kato. Seeing this, Dorian slowly takes back the wire in his hand. He realizes that he is not able to go back to Shinjuku tonight.